Joy was a woman who stopped traffic whenever she walked down the busy streets of Lagos because her beauty was something that no one could explain. Men from different parts of the city would come to her house with big cars and expensive gifts, hoping that she would just look at them and smile. Even though she received so much attention from rich politicians and handsome business owners, Joy was very careful about who she allowed into her life. She was not just looking for money or a handsome face, but she was looking for someone who would respect her strange rules. Joy had a very strict rule that she never broke, which was that no man was ever allowed to see her face without her makeup on. There was a time when a wealthy man named Mike took her out for a nice dinner at a fancy restaurant in Victoria Island. The next morning, Mike made a joke about wanting to see her morning face without the powder and lipstick, and Joy got very angry and deleted his number immediately. Another time, a young man tried to push her into a swimming pool during a party because he wanted to play with her in the water. Joy screamed at him with so much anger because she knew the water would wash her face, and she never spoke to him again after that day. People in the neighborhood started to gossip that Joy was too proud or that she was hiding a bad scar. But they did not know the truth. For Joy, the makeup on her face was not just for beauty, but it was like a strong shield that protected her life. She walked with her head high in her colorful Ankara dresses, but deep inside, she was always afraid that someone might find out her secret. Joy's bedroom was not like a normal bedroom because it looked more like a big cosmetic shop in the middle of Balogun Market. On her dressing table, there were hundreds of bottles, powders, brushes, and creams that she arranged very carefully every single day. She would wake up very early in the morning, around 4 a.m., before the cock crowed, just to start painting her face. She applied the foundation, the concealer, and the powder, layer by layer, until her skin looked as smooth as a new baby's skin. Even when she was sick with malaria or typhoid, Joy would still manage to stand up and put on her full makeup because she could not bear to see her own face in the mirror. She believed that the woman without makeup did not exist, and the only real Joy was the one with the painted face. Sometimes she would sit in front of her big mirror for hours, just staring at herself and saying, "This is who I am, and this is the face that they love." Her friends often joked that when Joy died, the mortuary attendants would have to bury her with her makeup kit. But Joy never laughed at those jokes. She knew that if anyone saw her real face, they would run away screaming in fear. The makeup gave her power over men, and it gave her the confidence to talk to people. But it was also a heavy mask that she could never take off. She felt like a prisoner in her own house because she could never just wash her face and relax like other women. After many years of dating men who only cared about her looks, Joy met a man named John, who was very different from all the others. John was an older man with gray hair in his beard, and he always wore a very neat white abaya that made him look like a respectful chief. He did not try to buy her love with expensive cars or trips to Dubai, but he bought her peace of mind instead. When they went out on dates, John would ask her about her dreams and her thoughts, and he never stared at her body in a disrespectful way. He was a calm man who spoke softly, and he made Joy feel safe for the first time in a very long time. John wrote her beautiful letters on paper, telling her how much he admired her character and her gentle spirit. He never asked her why she wore so much makeup, and he never tried to touch her face or rub her cheek. This made Joy very happy because she felt that John loved her for who she was inside, not just for her beautiful face. Slowly, Joy started to fall in love with John because he was the father figure and the lover that she had always wanted. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, this man would stay with her even if things got difficult. Their relationship was not built on rush and excitement, but it was built on slow conversations under the mango tree in her compound. The love between Joy and John grew stronger as the months passed by, and everyone in Lagos could see that they were perfect for each other. They spent their weekends going to quiet places, eating jollof rice at small restaurants, and talking about how they would grow old together. John was a patient man who listened to Joy whenever she spoke, and this made Joy feel that she could trust him with her life. She started to imagine a future where she was Mrs. John, the wife of a respected man who adored her. One evening, while they were sitting in a nice garden with soft music playing, John brought out a small ring box. He knelt down on one knee, ignoring the dirt on his white trousers, and asked Joy to be his wife. Joy did not think twice before she shouted yes, because she was convinced that John was her soulmate who would never leave her side. She thought that because John loved her heart, he would not care about her secret, although she still planned to keep it hidden. She felt the joy that she had not felt in many years, and she started planning the biggest wedding the city had ever seen. She told herself that she was finally safe and that her days of worrying about men leaving her were over. The engagement was the talk of the town, and everyone was happy that the beautiful Joy had finally found a husband. The wedding day finally arrived, and it was a very colorful and loud celebration that people would remember for a long time. Joy looked like a queen in her expensive lace material and a very high gala head tie that touched the sky. Her makeup was done by the best artist in the city, and she looked flawless without a single spot on her face. John looked very handsome and proud in his flowing adbara, dancing beside his beautiful wife while the drummers played loud music. Friends and family sprayed money on them as they danced, and the floor was covered in crisp Nigh notes. Everyone kept saying that they had never seen such a beautiful couple, and Joy smiled until her cheeks hurt. She was careful not to let anyone hug her too tight or touch her face while they were taking pictures. Even though she was smiling, her heart was beating fast because she was thinking about the night that was coming. She knew that living in the same house with a man would make it very hard to hide her secret ritual. But she pushed the fear away and focused on the party, the food, and the music. She told herself that tonight was for celebration, and she would worry about the morning when it came. John held her hand tightly throughout the ceremony, whispering sweet words into her ear, making her feel like the most special woman in Nigeria. After the long party and the dancing, the guests finally went home, and the newly married couple went to their hotel room for their wedding night. The room was cold because the air conditioner was working very well, and the bed was decorated with red flowers. John was so happy that he lifted Joy up in his arms to carry her to the bed, just like they do in the movies. Joy felt a sudden panic and instinctively turned her face away from his chest so that her makeup would not rub off on his white shirt. John did not notice her fear because he was too excited and happy to finally be alone with his wife. As John was walking toward the bed with Joy in his arms, his foot suddenly slipped on the smooth rug on the floor. It happened so fast that neither of them could stop it, and they both fell down heavily. John hit his head very hard on the sharp wooden edge of the bed frame, and he instantly closed his eyes and stopped moving. Joy screamed loudly and scrambled off the floor, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. She forgot about her dress and her makeup as she shook John, begging him to open his eyes. She was sweating from the panic and tears began to pour down her face like a river. She cried so much that the salty tears and the sweat began to wash away the thick layers of powder and foundation on her face. Joy was crying and shouting John's name, terrified that she had lost the only man she truly loved on their wedding night. For the first time in many years, she did not care about how she looked because her husband's life was more important. She grabbed a wet towel and wiped his face, and in the process, she wiped her own face with her hands, smearing the makeup completely. The mask she had worn for decades was melting away, revealing the skin that lay underneath. Slowly, John began to groan and open his eyes, holding his head in pain as he tried to sit up. He blinked his eyes a few times to clear his vision, and then he looked up to see his beautiful wife, Joy. But the person he saw in front of him was not the young, beautiful woman he had married just a few hours ago. John's eyes went wide with shock, and he pushed himself backward across the floor until his back hit the wall. He was staring at a face that was full of deep wrinkles, spots, and dry skin that looked like old leather. The woman in front of him did not look 30 years old. She looked like a grandmother who had lived for a very long time. John tried to speak, but his voice was stuck in his throat because he was too scared to understand what was happening. John finally found his voice and shouted, "Who are you, and where is my wife Joy?" The woman in front of him had gray hair showing where the black wig had shifted, and her neck was sagging with old age. Joy tried to reach out to hold his hand, but John slapped her hand away because he was trembling with fear. He thought that maybe an evil spirit or a witch had taken his wife and replaced her with this old woman. The room was silent except for the sound of Joy's sobbing and the humming of the air conditioner. "It is me, John. I am your Joy," she said with a cracked and shaky voice, but John shook his head violently. He could not believe that the smooth, glowing face he kissed at the altar was just a painting over this old face. He felt betrayed and confused, wondering if the entire marriage was a lie or a dream. Joy stood up, and her posture changed. She no longer stood like a young lady, but stooped a little like an old woman. She saw the horror in John's eyes, and she knew that the secret she had kept for so long was finally out in the open. She pleaded with him to listen, but John just stared at her, waiting for an explanation that would make sense of this nightmare. Joy sat down on the edge of the bed and wiped the last bit of makeup from her face, revealing that she was actually 100 years old. She told John that many years ago, when she was 35, a man she loved broke her heart and left her for a younger girl. She was so devastated and afraid of getting old that she went to a powerful witch doctor in a remote village. The witch doctor gave her a magic powder and told her that as long as she wore it, she would look young forever. However, there was a terrible curse attached to the magic that Joy did not understand at the time. She explained to a shocked John that while she stayed young and beautiful, every man she loved and married would grow old and die, while she remained the same. She confessed that she had been married many times before, and she had watched all her husbands die of old age while she kept finding new lovers. She told him that she was tired of the lonely cycle, but was too afraid to show her true face to the world. John sat there in silence, realizing that he was married to a woman who had lived for a century. The story ended with John looking at her, not knowing if he should run away or pity the woman who was cursed to live forever behind a mask of makeup.